So I've been following the last couple of days, the last week or so, with some fascination, the events which have unfolded after the Queen's death. Now, like many women in the 80s, I was named Elizabeth after the Queen. My parents didn't know anyone named Elizabeth, and so they felt like that was safe. Obviously, it was not. There were 4 Elizabeths in my elementary school class, and 2 of them went by Beth, and 1 of them went by Lizzie, and 1 of them went by Elizabeth until I was Elizabeth, until I got to college, and my friends refused to call me that. So I've always had a special place, it's a long story. I've always had a special place in my heart for the Queen. And I say the Queen because for those of us in the English-speaking world, there is only one Queen. We all know who I mean when I say the Queen, and because she was the Queen. And besides, she was really old, really, really old. And she'd been queen for a long time, something like 76 years, I think I saw somewhere. That's a long time to be doing anything. And she was kind of an amazing queen. She was meeting the prime minister 2 days before she died. Have you seen this picture? And she was obviously in much worse health than it looked like she was. And there she was, standing with heels on, in a green dress and a hat and a bag, and greeting the new prime minister. It's been devastating in England because that's the only queen that everybody knows, pretty much, in their lives, unless they are of a similar age as the Queen. So I've been following the events as they unfold because it's just fascinating. It feels like history as we watch it. And I haven't been watching every minute of it, before you worry, because I have children and a job and things to do outside of watching things like her grandson stand vigil on their coffin, by the coffin, which is really cool. And you can, if you choose, watch it live streamed on YouTube all 24 hours a day. You can just pull it up and watch it if you want to. But I have been watching bits and pieces, and I happened to be in a place where I needed some distraction while I was doing routine work, and the kind of task that's just copying and pasting, that kind of thing. And so I watched the Scottish Parliament give official condolences to the new king. And it was really weird. It was really weird and really strange, and I say that as an American who is duly skeptical of the monarchy, up with freedom and all that. But frankly, it was really strange and really weird on a deeply human level. I mean, think about it. Your mother has just died, a mother who by all accounts you were very close to, and whose advice you treasured, and who has been around for 73 years of your life. And your mother dies, and you turn around, and not only do you have to take over the family business, but everyone is calling you by a different name now. And then you have to go on a multi-country tour designed to stabilize the family business and assure everyone that, yes, you can do the job, when everybody on the planet Earth doubts that you can be king. And you have to give these countries an opportunity to tell you in a very formal and strict manner, while you wear uncomfortable clothing, how sorry they are that your mom died. And congratulations on your new job, by the way, that you didn't really want in the first place. Now, the leader of each party in the Scottish Parliament got to make a condolence speech, and they don't have 2 parties like we do, they have like 7. And so even the guy who represents 2 people in his party got to make a condolence speech. And one of the members of the Scottish Parliament, his name was Douglas Ross, gave a very good speech in which he recognized the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is this, that all of this is an accident. Every bit of it was an accident of birth. Any one of us could have been born into the same situation and had to sit there on that chair in the Scottish Parliament. And it was a quirk of history. No one should have been in that room that day saying those words. It didn't make sense. It shouldn't have been this way. And the Scottish Parliament member acknowledged that King Charles was king because he happened to be born to the Queen. And Mr. Ross said that because he happened to be born in Scotland and enjoy the immense privileges of being in Parliament, he got to say these words to the king. And we enjoy immense privileges because we were born here in a prosperous country where we don't have to worry about clean drinking water, unless we live in Flint, Michigan, of course, or Jackson, Mississippi. Those people don't get to enjoy all the blessings that we do, I guess. Anyway, it's an accident of birth, this kingship thing, and where we're born and what family we're born in. And Mr. Ross wasn't criticizing him or putting him down or anything like that. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing, which was consoling a man who was grieving. And it was a king because of an accident. And so the overwhelming emotion that I had was pity. All week I have felt deeply sorry for a human being who wears a crown and had to perform. We don't get to choose our families or our circumstances. Tolkien put the words in the mouth of his character Gandalf, but it doesn't make them any less true. And that it's not up to us to decide the times that we are born. Only what we do with the time we are given. You see, Abraham was the last of his family line. He was the 7-time great-grandson of Noah. And Noah's grandsons were naughty. They were very naughty boys. They brought curses upon their families because of a night of drunkenness and debauchery, which Noah had a little bit of a part in. And so 2 of the family lines were cursed. And so Abraham found himself the lone survivor of a withered, weak family tree. Abraham was chosen by God because of the family he happened to be born into. And his choosing came at a tremendous burden. Abraham and Sarah had no children. And yet God chose them to bless the earth and produce generations upon generations upon generations, all, of course, whom would be faithful to God. That is tremendous pressure. It's a pressure which I watched my brother growing up burden all his life as the last and only male child of his line. The only one who was going to carry on the family name, the burden that he felt to have male children. It's a burden that many of us feel and experience. Abraham was chosen by God. And the Bible has a fancy word for this. They call it election. And Romans 8 is the classic chapter on election, and it says that God knows you and God chooses you and God will send you whether you want it or not. And so Abraham was blessed to be a blessing to the world. And lately, Presbyterians have developed a little bit of guilt around this election thing. We didn't used to feel guilty about it. We used to brag about it. In fact, it was a running joke for a lot of years. All of you know this one. The frozen chosen, right? We're chosen and we're frozen by God. We're not changing anything ever, right? Because God chose us to sit this way and be this way. And we've begun to unthaw over the years, maybe talk about the Spirit occasionally in church, but we're still chosen and elected. And we feel a little bit guilty about it because we're not any better than anybody else. It gives us a little bit of trepidation and fear. Because chosenness and election doesn't have anything to do with whether you are a good person or whether or not you get into heaven. It has nothing to do with that. It doesn't make you better or more faithful or stronger or prettier. Chosenness does not have anything to do with other than the work that you are called to do. It's about being a blessing to the world. You see, the Bible is full of chosen people who are pretty crummy when it comes to morals. We can rattle off the stories of Abraham who lied about his wife so that the Pharaoh wouldn't kill her and then married her instead. I wonder if Sarah had any choice in that. Or David, who was pretty crummy. Sorry, Kim. She always gets mad at me when I take a pot shot at David. Or Paul, who was pretty mean. Or Peter, who was not so faithful. Or Judas, who was called by God to do a task that wasn't so appealing. Abraham was elected and chosen by God to be the beginning of a great nation. It turns out he was the beginning of 3. It's not a blessing. It's not something that you should be proud of or lord over in other people, but being chosen is about responsibility. It's a burden. Now, one of my very favorite pastors of all time, his name is Adrian. He's from just outside of Liverpool, England. He was a minister in the Church of Wales. And he came to West Virginia for some reason and was a pastor just down the road from us. And I remember sitting and talking to Adrian one night about the campfire, and I asked him why he chose to be a pastor, and he looked at me and he said, Elizabeth, I did not choose to be a pastor. I wake up every day and I pray to God that he will tell me to do something else. He was a great pastor. He was good at it. He was great with people. He enjoyed being around Adrian. You wanted to listen to him talk. But every day that calling felt like a burden. Which was in contrast to my friend Rob, who saw ministry as a blessing, every day as a joy. He woke up every morning excited and on fire for God. And he went out into the world and he did it. And he was so confident in his call by God that he waited 4 years after seminary working menial jobs to get the church that he wanted. Then there was my friend Lynn, who some days she woke up and she felt good about it. Some days she woke up and she wasn't so happy about it. And she said, Elizabeth, some days I wake up and I'm not sure if God's called me to this or to something else, and I'm not sure that I'm confident and I can do this. I'm not sure that I can get up and talk. In front of people today, I'm feeling a little fuzzy. And the truth is that for all of us, election, chosenness, doing what God asks us to do, we're somewhere in the middle on that spectrum. And some days you're going to be really excited and on fire for God. And some days you may have to drag your butt out of the bed. And some days you may feel like you aren't good enough. And some days you might feel like God has chosen somebody else. And some days you might feel like your faith is weak. And some days you may feel like your faith is strong. And absolutely none of that has to do with whether God chose you or not. It's okay to be weak, and it's okay to be afraid, and it's okay not to feel 100% about God every day. Some of us struggle every day with this faith. Some of us wake up every day with questions and with doubt in our hearts. And some of us wake up every day on fire for God and singing songs like Trust and Obey, which is beautiful, but sounds foreign to some of our ears. None of that has to do with whether God chose you. God chooses you. God chose you, whether you like it or not, whether you, like Abraham, are willing to walk the road, or whether you want to drag your feet a little bit. The only question that you have for your life is, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with that chosenness, that election? What are you going to do with the fact that God has called your name? Whether you have a strong faith or a weak faith, whether you doubt or whether you've never questioned, what are you going to do with it? Maybe your blessings will number the sky like the stars. You just got to go and trust God. Amen.